You know this gentleman from his time playing shortstop for the Phillies in 1993 and beyond, and these days from his work on the radio as an analyst with Scott Fransky. We say hello to Kevin Stocker. Hey, Stock, how are you?
Good, good. How are you doing?
Doing all right. So, Kevin, it's funny how things work out. Last year, you made your annual visit to our show on September 25th. It was 2 days after the Phillies clinched the NL East Division title. This year, it's 8 days earlier on the calendar, but it's 2 days after the Phillies clinched the East Division title. I'm going to go ahead and book you for next year in September also, all right?
No, I like it. That's good. What a coincidence. I had no idea about that. That's great.
Yeah, I didn't either. I just looked that up today and I was amazed. Well, speaking of such things, when you were on our show last year on that September 25th date, I pulled out this one quote that you said. You said, this team, last year's team, is built to win the World Series. It's World Series or nothing for these guys. Of course, it didn't quite work out that way, thanks to those stinking Mets. But the core guys are still here. Some guys are out injured. There are some new faces since the trade deadline. How are you feeling about this team as the regular season winds down?
Well, good, good. You know, it's interesting. I think about that quote and talking about World Series or nothing. And what I was referring to is these guys, to them, winning the World Series was all that mattered. So the fact, like, you can talk about, oh, you did really well, you got to the playoffs, that just, it didn't register with them. They didn't care about that. They just cared about winning the final game. I would say this, the team here, I think, as long as they can get everybody back, right? We got a couple of injuries that have been a little bit of an issue. They're still playing really well, but I think they'll need those guys back. I also think, coming back out of spring training at the beginning of the year, people have asked me about this team and the attitude, and it was very businesslike with this team, right? So I think last year, because of what had happened with Arizona, they had a little chip on their shoulder the whole season, all the way into the playoffs. And they were up and down, up and down. This year out of spring training, much more businesslike. You know, think about, they got rid of like the water splashing after the games, and they just really got to work. And I think the work is really starting to shine right now. And you're seeing that at the end of the season. So I still think this team is in the driver's seat. I think that they're peaking at the right time. I do think they're going to need a few of those pieces back. Alec Boehm should be back, Trey Turner and so forth. So, yeah, I still like where this team is at.
You mentioned the injuries and the Zach Wheeler health issue. How has the team managed to play so well despite the losses of those guys and, Alec Boehm? I mean, they've been fantastic, actually, the last 3 or 4 weeks.
It's pretty remarkable how the team responded after Zach Wheeler. I mean, how devastating was that? Here's the top pitcher in baseball, really. Goes down, and it would have been easy for the team to kind of fold and go the other way. And basically what we saw was the pitching staff really stepped up. The offense, I think, was going to come. That was a matter of time. But the pitchers had to go, okay, Christopher Sanchez, for example, so much more mature now. No problem. Took that on. Luzardo, Ranger's been pitching really well. And I think you have to lean, when things like this happen, you have to lean on your strengths. And the starting staff and the depth certainly are the strength here. So for them to come back, the pitchers were great. And then I think also with the injuries in the lineup, and Dave Dombrowski and his team understand the idea that it's more than just a 26-man roster. I know this sounds so, you've heard us say it before, but teams dip now down into AAA and even AA more than they ever have, and they do it consistently through the season. So you have to have the depth down there, and those guys have really stepped up. So those are just a couple of things, the starting staff, and then, of course, the depth guys.
When Trey Turner was sidelined last year with a hamstring issue, it took him quite a long time after that to look like his old self. He seemed like he was a little bit tentative, maybe. This year, it's probably going to be a shorter turnaround, and he'll be back, hopefully, going right into the postseason. Is that a concern?
No, it's not a concern for me. Now, the strain that he had, or the pull that he had a year ago, was legit. It was a big one. Right. I mean, it took time. I think when he came back, he had to make sure that it was going to be good to go, that sort of thing. I don't think this one, I don't know if they rate him like 1, 2, 3, all that sort of thing. This one was just a little bit of a tug. You feel a tug back there, so it's very precautionary, but I think he'll be fine. I think they would love to get him back. And when I say they, I mean Trey. Trey wants to come back before the end of the season, even if it's just 2 or 3 games, just to kind of get the blood flow and see how it feels. I have my concerns about that. I mean, if they can get themselves into a bye situation, I'm like, give him more time. But Trey's like, no, I want to get in there. That's a good sign. That means, at least for me, it tells me that he's feeling good and that he's not concerned about it. So I just think he'll come right back in and shouldn't be a problem. I will say this. The concern about that is part of Trey's success this year has been his ability to get on base and run, and the acceptance of, hey, I might give up a little bit of power for getting on base, hitting the other way. And what I mean by that is the simple things that we take for granted. Him running from, for example, home to first base, he has been giving it everything he has. His sprint speed is up, and he runs hard every time. That puts so much pressure on the defense. When you come back from a little bit of a leg injury like this, what I'm hoping is that he doesn't have any concerns about that, and he can still do that, because if that shuts down the running game, that's a big part of his game and a big part of the Phillies' success. He should be fine.
How about the three guys Dave Dombrowski acquired before the trade deadline? Relievers Duran and Robertson, and of course the center fielder Harrison Bader. Those guys have been fantastic.
Man, where do you want to start? Let's start with Bader.
Yeah,
let's start with Harrison Bader. God, Harrison Bader is a very colorful guy, right? I mean, he's got a lot of things to him about him. He's been hot. He also plays with no fear. And so, that really helps when you come into an experienced team. They accepted him. He came in. He belongs in here. He understands his role. He plays a really good center field more than anything. It covers the ground. I go back to his first game in here, and I don't know if you remember, but I certainly do. He's playing center field, and he let a ball. And it wasn't just his fault, but a ball fell that he could have gotten. It fell out there. From that point on, he has just been a guy that has controlled center field. He said, I'm no longer going to let that happen. So he has fit in really well. You go to the pitching staff, Rob, I mean, a veteran guy came in terrific shape. He understands the situation. He understands that he's going to come in, his role. He's not intimidated at all. So he's been a real uplift for them as far as a right-handed guy. And I think he helps Ryan Kirkring, who's been up and down. So now you have another option back there. And then Duran, I mean, you get a legitimate closer. So people are like, oh, he's great. He has a guy that close. But what does he do for the rest of the guys? You have to think about this. It was closer by committee, and that's a tough job. Not everybody wants to do it. Now, all of a sudden, he comes in and says, I want it. In my opinion, the rest of the guys in the bullpen, whether it's Matt Strom or Ryan Kirkering, you could certainly, at the time, you could have said Romano, who is now injured. But at the time, these guys take a big, deep breath and go, okay, now I'm back into the role that I'm comfortable. And that goes a long way in the pen. So those three fit right in.
Well, it's pretty certain now the Phillies will have one of the top two seeds in the National League in the postseason.
Nice.
First round bye that goes with it, which is great. So how will Rob Thompson line up the rotation to start the postseason? We know it's going to be Sanchez, but can you go with three straight lefties?
Well, I don't know. How do I know that, Chet? Right?
You're the analyst. You're the expert.
So you're asking me how will he, and I'll say how will I think he will do it, because he's been pretty tight-lipped. He did say yesterday that Christopher will start one. Okay, so we do know that. At that point, it's really going to be, and I believe Rob when he says it's going to be a little bit of a matchup situation. In other words, he's got Ranger, of course, he has Luzardo, and he has Nola, and everybody's all concerned about Aaron Nola. Aaron is just a one inning has been getting Aaron right now, but he is that right-hander guy that has the experience. He still gets another start. I think that goes a long way. So he will look at a team, and I don't know. I'd have to dive into, but let's say if it was the Mets, for example, are they better or worse against left or right-handers? That will determine pitcher 2 and 3. If it happens to be Arizona, like I don't know who it's going to be, but he will look at the strengths and weaknesses of that team. For example, the Phillies, a lot of teams are like, oh man, these guys are susceptible to left-handed pitching. So teams against the Phillies will want to go in there and start lefties. So it will be a little bit of a matchup scenario. Now, if Aaron goes out there his next start and just absolutely deals for 6 or 7 innings, I'd be surprised if they let him go that long. But that might change things. But I believe Rob when he says it'll be Christopher and then a little bit more of a matchup situation.
If it's the Dodgers and Mets playing as the 3-6, do the Phillies have any concerns about going back to Citi Field if the Mets were to pull off the upset of the Dodgers?
No, I don't know. I mean, we all do, right, as fans, just based off the history of it. But the players don't really think like that. It just not as much as we do. I mean, it's probably certainly there, but the players for the most part, like I said, they get through the regular season. Once you get to the playoffs, and you start to play, it's a complete different season, and you can usually separate from that.
Some of the Phillies bats went silent at the worst possible times, of course, over the last couple of Octobers. As hitters, what can you do to ensure that doesn't happen again this time around?
Nothing. The work stays the same. That's the one thing about this team. In fact, I was talking with Otto Kemp yesterday, and it was such a great. This team is so approachable, and it's great. I can ask them weird questions. So I asked Otto, and this goes to your question, I'll get there, but I asked Otto, he was up and then he got sent down and then he came back up and he's playing and hitting really well. And I said, was there anything that you did differently when you went down? And there's the obvious thing is when you get sent down, you realize, first of all, that the speed of the game is drastically slower at AAA. So you go, okay, so now you've got that experience. The other thing that he said to me, I love, he said, what I took was when I went back down to AAA, I took the routine that I learned from the guys up here. I took it down there and used it. The routine that Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto has instilled in everybody, that work routine. And what he said was when I went down there, I kept the routine so that I made sure that I was scratching everything I needed to because I was missing some things in his preparation. So, for example, the routine in the cage, off the tee, the work that he did prior to every start, he had a different routine up here. He took it with him. And now all of a sudden, there was no surprises. So to your question is, what can you do as a hitter? You do the same work. There's nothing more you can do other than you get it prepared, you work, and then you go up there and try to grind out good at-bats. That would be the one thing, is to make sure these guys are grinding those at-bats, because the pitching in the playoffs is going to always be the top three guys. It's going to be the Ohtani for the Dodgers. It's going to be those guys. So they just have to continue to work, not get too high, not get too low.
I mentioned the division clinching the other day, and the locker room celebration that followed looked like a real good time. What were the celebrations like back in 1993 when you and Macho Rowe and company clinched the NL East and then beat the Braves in the NLCS?
It's the same. It's the same. I mean, you get in there, the plastic. Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's very much the same. I don't remember the cigars as much as they do now, but there's a lot of champagne flowing. We didn't have the goggles. We weren't smart enough to get goggles back then, but now they have goggles for everybody. But it's just the one difference might be here. You have 3 or 4 celebrations if you continue to win.
Right.
Back then, it was just you won the NLCS and then you went to the World Series. Like, there were 2 celebrations. We had the one, but ours was in Pittsburgh, and it was a thrill of my life. It was fantastic, but yeah, a lot of champagne flowing.
Well, last thing, I watched your Bulls session visit with John Brazier and Mickey Morandini last month. Brazier's a friend of this show. He does our show every spring. And you gave some great, interesting insight into your development as a color analyst over the 4 or 5 years you've been doing it with the Phillies, with Scott Fransky. So I'm going to ask you, what is the key to being a good analyst on radio, and how much tougher has it become with the advent of the pitch clock a few years ago?
Those are a couple of great questions. So this is what I would say. So before I was doing radio with Fransky, I was doing television for college baseball, Pac-12, ESPN, and so forth. And that was on television. So this is what I tell people that ask that question. When you do a color or analyst work on television, the color guy is the man, because there's a lot of time to fill. You can call for replays. You can, if you have a teleprompter, you can draw things out. And I really did, and I enjoy that, because you can really show the fans things. So you're the guy. On radio, it flops. So the play-by-play is the guy, because Scott has to describe and really paint the picture. And as an analyst, you have to pick the times to get in there. So that was something that I had to learn how to do. Now, prep-wise, I try to do as much prep as I can, but I also want to bring in some things to Scott that get him out of stats, that get him out of that, some fun things that we can talk about. Because Scott loves to, and I do too. I love it when he has a different opinion than I do. And I don't pretend to know all of it. All I can do is give you what I think and what I've experienced. But there are still things that I learn, and then I also want him to learn things. So those discussions are so much fun. So I really enjoy the radio part of it. It's a lot more casual. I don't have to, I don't have to wear makeup or do things like that. I can. We go, if the game's at 7, we go on at 7. I mean, I really like that part of it. So it's been a lot of fun. Now that's the first. What was the second part of that question? Was there 2 parts?
I think there were 2 parts. Oh, the advent of the pitch clock.
The pitch clock. So yes. So the tough thing about that is, and just let me go on record by saying I love the pitch clock. I mean, I do.
Too.
I don't love it in the sense that the game needs it, but it needed it. Okay, I think the game times now are averaging 2:38, something like that. It used to be 3:20. The tougher part, I think, has been for storyline. So on the radio, for example, to be able to tell a good story, a backstory of a player, to get into that depth, it has been a challenge and can be challenging now. So that's the one thing where it's been tough. But we always have something to complain about. I don't want to complain about that. So yeah, it's just still a lot of fun.
Another Red October is approaching. We look forward to the three-man booth, you, LA, and Scott Fransky together. And we're hoping it goes right into early November. Catch this guy on 94 WIP and the Phil's radio network. Kevin Stalker, thank you.
You betcha. See you, man.